Welcome all. Howdy, howdy. It's time for perhaps the grand finale of Beelzebub's tales to his grandson. Will we go on tangents? Will we survive before the bombs drop? Only time will tell. Howdy, chat. Let's see who we got in today. We got Surf. We got Tyler. Tyler's business about to pop off. I think one day we should all go after a reading. We should all just fly to Tyler's restaurant and have a nice meal together. Bob Ellis, howdy. Kimberly's in the chat. Another guy. Thank you for the details. Another guy. It's good to get a novel to read in between dry philosophy. Haney Yeel says hi. Howdy, Haney. Let's go, boys. Now, for all those watching in the future, if you want to support the channel, please do. You can support it through the Ko-fi account, or give a one-time donation via PayPal, or even become a YouTube member. And then you can get access to the secret Telegram chat where you can talk to me directly. There's the normal Telegram group, which is just a meme group, but I don't really talk much in there. Nonetheless, well, a jacket. I'm in my... You're in your underwear, Tyler. Yes. Well, it's a good thing I'm not standing up. Let's just put that... Let me just say that. Now, notwithstanding... Oh, Wesley Sullivan. Howdy, Wesley. Last week, Gurdjieff was oiling us up, metaphorically. He was talking about death, and he was... Because it's interesting, because he started talking about visualizing death, which, if we remember, at the last chapter of the Beelzebub narrative, the narrative has ended, and we're on this final chapter. In the last part of the narrative, Hassien asked Beelzebub, is there any way that humanity can, we can make it work? Can we make it work? And Beelzebub said the only way would be to install another organ like the Kunda buffer, but that it would have the effect to make man constantly contemplate death. So now he's talking about death and this contemplation of death, but the barrier to that contemplation. So that's where we left off. That's where we left off last week. Him basically saying, you can't visualize it yourself. You can kind of visualize other people, and then he says, like Mr. Smith going to a movie theater, falls beneath an automobile, dies. Wah wah. Mr. Brown, having eaten crayfish, gets sick and dies. Wah wah. And then, anyone can easily picture all of these, but can he, average man, contemplate the same possibility for himself? That was the question. That was the question. So let's continue now, guys. Let's just plow through this, guys. Let's get to the end. As he admits for Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Brown, I feel like these are all the names of bands. The Smiths, the Jones, the Browns, something. Hey, Ghoul in the chat, what's up? And feel and live through all the despair from the fact that those events may happen to him. Because, that's what I find is the I understand why Gurdjieff is memento mori, contemplate death. But I find if you do it too much or do it in the wrong way, it just kind of kills any wanting to move. It's like, oh, what's the point of trying if it's all going to end up in death? You fall into nihilism. So it's almost like you need some kind of Nietzschean philosophy to counteract the nihilism you get from contemplating death too much. But yes. Out tuition in the chat. Howdy. Adamu. Glad to see you here. Was it Lucien in the chat? Oh, you're a member as well. I haven't seen you before, Lucien. Are you a name change of Dylan again, or are you a new person? And you're calling me a Robert Sefer Slayer. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome. Now, think what would happen to a man who clearly pictures to himself and lives through the inevitability of his own death. If he seriously ponders and is really able to enter deeply into this and to cognize his own death, what could be more terrifying? Yeah, exactly. How do we resolve this? In ordinary life, particularly in recent times, over and above the depressing fact of the inevitability of death, which must infallibly occur to them, there are indeed for people a large number of other similar facts, whose real picturing alone of the possibility of experiencing them must evoke in us feelings of inexpressible and intolerable anguish. Yeah, so you just become an angsty boy when you think about death too much. You get those emo goth vibes. So I'm just reading chat. Ghoul says, maybe we're all the Dylans we met along the way. Yes, we all become Dylan at the end of the road. Dylan is within all of us. It's Dylan that self-realizes within us. That's the path, guys. We figured it out. Suppose that such contemporary people as have already lost entirely all possibility of having any real objective hope for the future. That is to say, those of them who have never sown anything during their responsible life, who in consequence have nothing to reap in the future. Interesting. Suppose they should cognize the inevitability of their speedy death, and then from only an experiencing in thought alone would they hang themselves. So yes, exactly. So here's the thing, because in Gurdjieff's cosmology, he basically states that normal people, when you die, you're just a bundle of psychic processes. So when you die, you just kind of dissolve. And this persona, this person that you are, is annihilated functionally. Nothing the psychic processes continue, but then they just absorb in this universe and they go off and they do different things. It's not like there's one thing that reincarnates. He puts that onus on something greater, but he doesn't necessarily say it's like you have to have a causal body or you have to have an astral body. It's almost like if a human gets something, even if it's not a full astral body, even if it's not pure objective reason, if something is crystallized, it can perpetuate, even if not permanently, if for a period of time. And it could even be something negative, like a grudge that continues beyond your death or something. But say like you have a desire. Desire is a loaded term nowadays, but maybe something like a yearning. You know, you get really inspired by music or something, and you just want to be the best, but you never get opportunities to, you know, practice throughout your day. But that yearning continues all the way through your life and your death, and so it's almost like that yearning becomes the glue that holds a bunch of psychic processes together. So when you're deposited into a new body, yeah, you don't have your memories, and you don't, and you know, the hereditary of that new body, the social situation, the zodiacal forces change a lot. It's not the same persona, but there's this yearning that continues, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're a keyboard player or something. Bad examples, but nonetheless, it seems like he's going for something like that. And I'm just bringing that up because there's this whole thing. He's saying the solution is to contemplate death. But what's the problem is when you realize that most people haven't sown anything. It's like, I'm saying like, oh, you have a yearning to be, I don't know, a keyboard player for Radiohead or something. But that's like silly. And it's like, how many yearnings do you have that you give up? You know, how many things do you want to do and you make a New Year's resolution and then by like week 2, it's gone? You know, it's gone. So it's not like, what am I trying to say? It's like, I'm saying you can potentially create something permanent that's not as extreme as an astral body, causal body, or objective being reason. But we have this tendency to move the goalpost towards us. And it's like, it's not just an average wanting. There has to be something that becomes perpetual. Even when we're thinking at our best, we're at our best situation, and or maybe it's like even when we're indulgent, or even when all of our life seems to be going perfectly and we have no kind of worries, it's very easy to not put effort into certain things. And it's like, no, even on the good days, there has to be a desire to do this. And even on the bad days, the worst point, when you're at your lowest point, if you still want to continue with this thing, if there is something that can persist in you while you're at your highest and your lowest point, that thing can potentially be permanent beyond your death. But if you don't, most people don't have that. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Most people don't have that. And so if they genuinely were able to observe themselves and see in themselves and see their own vacuous nature and then contemplate death, they would be like, and they just hang themselves. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. So, how do we resolve this, Gurdjieff? How do we resolve this? Adam in the chat says, we must achieve Chim. That's pretty funny, actually. That's a funny reference. Our tuition says, Buddhists be like, the solution is to not desire. Ha, got him. There's more to it than that, but I mean, they have their asceticism to create something permanent, but another guy asks, are certain aspects the only thing that can perpetuate when not having any of the bodies? Things like the ego itself. So it seems, and this is hard, it's like, the best way I've heard it described is Evola, well, in Introduction to Magic books, so maybe Evola, describes it as like, imagine a higher principle, like a general, that sends the grunts out, the privates out, into battle. And each time they go out, they die. And so nothing is left at the end. So he has to get some new privates and send them out and they all die. But sometimes, when they're versing the enemy, even though it still ends in failure, a couple of the privates survive and they come back. And maybe they get promoted to corporal. And then they get some more privates and they send the next wave out and the corporals are behind them. And then after, most of them die, then more kind of comes back. And then the general can kind of send more. And it's like these waves are your lives. Your lives are issuing out from these higher principles and they're absorbing back. And something is slowly growing. And then there's a final wave which defeats the enemy. And that structure, that orientation, that is what crystallizes and becomes it then becomes the permanent individual. So it depends where you are, I should guess. And I mean, it's one of those things, if you're a completely NPC Hylic normie man, I don't know if you'd even be here this late in the game. Completely Hylic people have completely Hylic desires. They don't even have, maybe they have some notion of metaphysics, but they don't really, and Lucerne asks, what is the enemy? That's a good question, Lucerne. Professor Vince says, and so we catch up. Howdy, Professor. But yeah, it depends on kind of where you are. So there may just be aspects, there may be something more, and it's like there may be memory fragments, some really strong memories from a previous life or something, but it's like when you achieve the work, it's from that point onwards, then you're going to be eidetic, hopefully eidetic memory, perpetual consciousness, eternal memory. It's from that point onward, the story of Pythagoras, or one of the legends of Pythagoras, is that he was a warrior in Troy. Originally, one of the warriors in Troy that participated and did great acts of heroism, that when he died, Hermes came to him and said, you are my child. What gift can I give you that you have lived this heroic life? And the guy basically says, I never want to forget. And so Hermes gives him eternal memory. And it's not that he gets all of his past lives, it's from that point onwards, he never forgets. And that guy became Pythagoras. So it's like, we kind of just have little bits and bobs that you got to cultivate. And that's why it is dangerous, because it's like, if you don't crystallize, you get little bits and bobs and hopefully it perpetuates and builds up. And then finally you get a crystallization. But really, it's like, you got to aim to try and do it in this life, because there's no guarantee that you get your bits and bobs and it does build up to a crystallization. It could be that, bits and bobs, and then, you incarnate into, I don't know, India, and then World War III hits, and, a nuke goes off, and then, I don't know, you incarnate where? Into a den of thieves, and you just become a thief, and you get filled with desires, and you enter a brothel, and you lose everything. This New Age concept of progress, that it's a natural spiral, that we're all heading to humanity, we're just going towards the fifth dimension, man. It's gonna be a new age. No. We're locked in a circle, perpetual. It's like it may at one point of the circle it may be good, and at one point of the circle it may be bad, but that's just it. If you understood the terror, the true terror of that circle and what it is, it's like, oh, you got to turn that circle into a spiral for real. That's the true horror. It's like, you know, when you read the Buddhist sutras and you read when the Buddha awakens and he sees his past lives, his reaction to that is not, oh, I was Napoleon in a past life, or oh, I was Marilyn Monroe, or I was Cleopatra. His reaction to his own past lives is borderline disgust. I can't remember. To paraphrase it, something like, he just kind of goes, ooh, what a waste. That's like the kind of thing. It's like people in New Age slop territory who look into their past lives and are like, yeah, I was Cleopatra, oh, and they like romanticize past lives, and everyone's like, oh, healing past trauma. No. If you understood the true terror of the situation, it's not good. People who are nihilistic and who say, oh, you know, when you die, you just die and there's just all black, they're the optimists. They're the optimists, because then the suffering ends. For us, it's no matter, even if you reach the highest state and you become a king, you will eventually go down the circle and you will become a wretched person. Once again, it's like, no matter how much you develop yourself and become a king, become a ruler, become a great scientist, a learned man, you're going to go back down to the bottom again. That's the true horror. No matter how high you climb up the mountain, you will always fall again. It's only by crystallizing something and becoming a being outside of time and space, outside of the wheel of time, that you're able... Anyway, we're ranting here, guys. I should be completing this book. But what's the terror? I happen to like roguelikes. Well then, good, Adamu. You're good. You're good then. Now, suppose they should cognize the inevitability of their speedy death. Yeah. They would hang themselves. This is what Gurdjieff is talking about. Well, this is just it. Life is a roguelike, but even in roguelikes, you still get stuff that can then continue on from like afterwards. Like you level up some kind of stat that then allows you to keep going. You know, you prestige each time you die a little bit. Even in a roguelike, the higher principle, i.e. you outside of the computer game, you still gain something while you play a roguelike, because you gain the experience of the previous character. So then when you start a new character and you go through it again, your experience is able to guide your avatar and perform better. There's no guarantee that there's no guarantee of anything, man. There's no guarantee. You have to take this life from this perspective of the consciousness itself, trying to act in the world and try to get something happening. If there is a high thing, good, connect to it. Draw some knowledge down, draw some of those higher principles down so that you can actually get far in this roguelike and not just, we're basically in the tutorial level perpetually. It sucks. It sucks. Yeah, exactly, another guy. Because it could be, I mean, even though I said nothing really stays, there's something that does perpetuate, but we can only kind of experience it instinctually. It's like instinctually you just know. It's like instinctually the pain of existence is there, and that manifests in us. And we just kind of like, yeah, nah, there's got to be something more. And even if we're born into a completely materialistic, atheistic society, we still search. Out tuition. I'm Sisyphus maxing. Not all acorns become an oak tree. Yeah, that's another good one, Wesley. Adamu. Look, even if you can do, oh yeah, the infinite amount of time. Look, if you wanna go slow around the mountains, go for it, bro. If you're having fun, go for it, bro. Some of us aren't having fun. That's the thing, Adamu. Now, The particularity of the action, of the consequences of the properties of the said organ, i.e. Kundabuffer, on the common psyche of people consists just in this, that thanks to it, there does not arise among most contemporary people these three-brained beings in whom were placed all the hopes and expectations of our Creator, as possible servers of higher purposes, the cognition of any of these genuine terrors, and also that it enables them peacefully to carry their existence in unconscious fulfillment of what was foreordained, but in the service of only of nature's nearest immediate aims. So that's interesting. As they have meanwhile lost on account of their unbecoming abnormal life any possibility of serving higher purposes. So this is really interesting. So what did the Kundabuffer actually do? The Kundabuffer blocked our ability to contemplate this, I guess, without direct action. Like, we can contemplate it if we try. But, you know, most people live their lives without ever doing it. And it's like, sometimes you look at them and it's like, how do you just not contemplate infinity? It's because of the remnant of the Kundabuffer. That was the whole kind of point, to stop us from doing this. And a part of the Kundabuffer, it stops us from doing that, and it stops as possible servers of high purposes, and it stops us having this condition of this genuine terror. So it's like, it stops us from killing ourselves, because it's, you know, those memes that are just like, never kill yourself. And it's just like the most mundane thing ever, but it's supposed to be like, you know, there's always something, you know, don't kill, was it like the Reddit post of like, man, my friend killed himself, he'll never see Avengers Endgame or something. It's this whole thing. It's like, you know, never kill yourself, because what about the next desire? What about the next thing that comes out? That is a Kundabuffer orientated thing to stop you from killing yourself. And that was what the Kundabuffer did, because that was in ancient times. The ancient humans were just like, nah, I'm not gonna fulfill my role in the universe, and just kind of cashed out. So the Kundabuffer was there to kind of enchant us into life and make us this way. But it had all of these side effects. And it peacefully enables us, well, hopefully, to have this unconscious fulfillment, to fulfill nature's nearest immediate aims. Because what does nature want? A skoken. How does a skoken get made? By humans dying. So you need more humans. So fulfill yourself hylically and make lots of babies. That's what nature wants. So we just became kind of batteries for nature. It's literally the Matrix. We became batteries, but not for machines, but for nature itself. Another guy says, last possible tangent question, bruh. Why is self-development stored in the balls? It's the key. It's the key. So how do you create like opportunities for new essences to incarnate? You need the life force to create a new body. Fundamentally, a new physical body. Just imagine all of the things, the essence, the products that goes into that. It's all contained within the balls or ovum. And so it's not that like the answer is there. It's just that there's potential in there. So if you have a raw potential, you can learn to use that raw potential for other purposes. Gurdjieff talks about the exiohari being an ingredient in higher being bodies. But then so it's interesting, and he talks about sexual transmutation in some places, but it's very, very talks around it. And it's this thing with Gurdjieff. It's like he talks about some things, but then other things he avoids talking about. But there's this, an absence is also a presence. And alchemists did this, where they'll deliberately not talk about something, but so autistically that it would pull your attention there. And that's like, they want you to look at that thing that they're not talking about. That's the kind of key. And so Gurdjieff, and because it's this thing, he talks about the exiohari being important part of higher being bodies. And I always come back to that, because that's one thing Gurdjieffians nowadays are just like, yeah, self-remember and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that's all you need to do. And it's like, there seems to be something to do with the sexual energy. And there's all these interesting things. Like, remember when we were all reading Beelzebubs together? And there was all of those weird chapters where Gurdjieff was talking about people who clean their balls. And he was talking about how they do all these weird things where they'll go to an altar and they'll like burn a little cow pat and put their genitals over it to wash their genitals, or to like the smoke will incense burn their genitals. Or these people will dig holes in the ground and put like tents up and then fill the holes with like manure and then light it up. And then they'll have this little platform that they can lower in there, and they'll just stand on the platform without any pants on so that the smoke washes their genitals. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about, Gurdjieff? Well, what is this? What is that person doing? Symbolically, that person is descending. So there is a prayer, a Sufi prayer that goes something like, you know, oh my God. It's almost like a Catholic prayer when you translate it. It's something like, my God, my sins. Use the manure of my sins as fuel for your spiritual fire. It's a really interesting prayer. I'm just paraphrasing it. But there's this, it makes me wonder if Gurdjieff is having this commentary on people who descend. It's almost like he's saying the left-hand path people who try to use sexual magic, but they do it in a wrong way. They try to use sexual magic and they'd be, oh, it's transcendental, but actually they just dirty themselves. Because if you use your sins as manure for the spiritual fire, a fire that's made with manure is going to stink, bro. And so it's not just that it's getting stinky fire at their altar, and they're stinking up their altar, but they're also washing their genitals with it. And so it's like this sexual practice. They're descending and trying to use the manure of their sins to create this spiritual fire. And it's washing their genitals. So it's this sexual practice. And all they're doing is stinking up their genitals. I feel like, and he kind of critiques these people, saying they're doing something wrong, but they have the right idea, because you should be washing, wash your penis. He's doing the, you know, clean your room, wash your penis. Because that was the whole thing when in that chapter where he was talking about, in the West, we have all these sexual diseases, and in the East, they don't, which is wrong. But he says in the East they don't. Why? Because they wash their penis. But then he says there's these people in this middle region, like, I don't know, kulaks and a bunch of like gypsies, who do these weird practices with like burning cow pats and then using the smoke to wash their peepees. And it's like, once again, he's speaking about it so symbolically, and it's this, and he talks about it in a Gurdjieff way. But I'm like, with him talking about higher being bodies, and the proper higher being body uses Exia, and then him not talking about sexual transmutation, and this talking about, there's something there about the balls. And once again, I haven't like connected the dots, but you know, you can feel it when he's like, Gurdjieff is making a reference to something, but you don't know the reference, but he's pointing in a direction. There's something about the balls. He's pointing towards this practice, and he's talking about the genitals. There's something important there. There's something you do. There's something you do to the sexual energy to transform it, and it becomes a part of the work. And that's something I respect, because I'm always a little bit sussy-bucker about any system that doesn't engage with sexuality whatsoever. It's just like, no, be hyper-intellectual and meditate and contemplate the absolute, and then you escape the physical. I'm more of a, you have a physical body, you may as well learn to use it. You may as well learn to use the energies within it. And a part of those energies is the sexual energies, not to, become like, yeah, you gotta just, sexual energy, like goon. Not to become obsessed with it, because there's these people who, I like Tom Berg described it. He said, imagine spirituality as like a rainbow, and the sexual practices are a part of the red color. There are some people who want to take the red part out of the rainbow. If you have a rainbow without red, it's not a rainbow. But then there are some people who want to make the red bar of the rainbow. They just want to make the entire rainbow just red and just focus on that. And it's like, both of these people are in errors. It has its place. It has its place, but it just needs to be here. And it's like, it's hard because, once again, sexuality is the thing that people get obsessed with. It's a stumbling block for a lot of people. So it's almost like Gurdjieff puts it in its place, but somewhat symbolically. And those who get it, and those who don't either kind of lose it or obsessed with it. And it's important, okay? Anyway, another guy. I just like fully rambled there. I hope I answered your question. This couldn't buffer feature doesn't work 90% of the time. Devs, please fix. So I'm just reading the rest of chat now. Out tuition. So obviously the goal is self-development, but would the meta goal be of humanity to get as many of this higher state to uplift the spirit? Yeah, so, I mean, the meta goal Gurdjieff talks about is getting as many causal bodies into the absolute as possible so that God can defeat time, the entropy of time, and can keep existence going. Out tuition. The superior reincarnates, blah, blah, blah. Acquire more balls, Exia maxing. Exactly, Wesley. Would chi or other terms for life force in other cultures also be included in that potential? Yeah, so specifically in Taoism, it would be Jing. So the Jing would be the Exia. And then something more like chi would be more like Handbled Zoin. And then Shen would just be like objective being reason. In the modern day, we practice the secret art of ball tanning the sun. I'm not a real professor, by the way, says Professor Vince. I took the title after a comment beef with Dave. Is that the cringe science guy? Oh, Professor Dave. Oh my god. God, that guy is so cringe. Nulu says, this sounds like Dark Souls lore. For real, there's like some, I don't know what From Software like drank, which waters they drank from, but a lot of their games just have like good cosmology. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like art and mythology is representative of something transcendent. And in modern day, I would say like the mythology of modern day is like sci-fi. A lot of the early sci-fi guys were kind of tapping into something. But like we're in kind of meta-modern times, and it's weird. Some like computer game laws have some crazy... and once again, it's not proper... It's not a full esoteric system or by any means. It's like, you know, reading cultivation novels. It's based on Taoism, fundamentally, and so there's little bits in there where you're like, oh, that's actually interesting, but it's not like a full thing. But at the same time, it's like, no, Dark Souls lore kind of really does have some interesting stuff. Tomberg win, doesn't... Blah, blah, blah. We in a good mood. Good mood. I always said Miyazaki and Kojima are two game devs who are tapped into some deep knowledge. Yeah, for real. For real. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people who just, once again, artists in particular, it's, you know, their higher genius, their higher cylinders. Some are able to just kind of deposit a little bit of something. It said even an evil artist can, the higher genius, the higher cylinders of an evil person can still deposit a little something, and in their art there can actually be something. Another guy says, would you say rather than the creator itself intending for it, it must be the viewer that will give it meaning? No. So Gurdjieff speaks of this. Between subjective and objective art, yes, there's many ways to categorize art, but Gurdjieff just uses these two terms. So his idea of subjective art is art that acts as a mirror. That's what you just said. So it's like art where different people will look at it and they'll all get something different out. And that can be good. You know, that can be a good reflective way of studying yourself. But then there's objective art where something is deposited into the art and everyone who views it gets the same thing out. Like a musical song that produces, you know, it has the essence of true tragedy placed into it, and everyone can't help but feel that emotion. And of course, there's still problems with this. Like, with objective art, you still need to develop a certain degree of aesthetic sense. Because, you know, if you're just a dull guy who listens to nothing but, I don't know, EDM, and then you get this, you know, this pure objective art, it's a classical composition of which has the essence of tragedy in it, but you don't listen to classical. It's like you just don't understand it. So there's still a little bit of aesthetic development that you go through, but specifically, Gurdjieff would say there is such a thing as objective art, and that's art that has the essence of things kind of deposited into it. The way we're talking about it is artists who do it accidentally. But there are supposedly artists, you know, like mystics, William Blake, Rumi. In their poetry, they actually embed real esoteric kind of stuff in there. real esoteric experience. But, you know, fundamentally painting, fundamentally music, architecture is a big one. I mean, architecture is the big one. It's a form of art, but it's like three-dimensional geometry within the world that is encoded with our chemical knowledge for real. So it's not just the essence of something like, you know, tragedy or an emotion. It actually has real alchemical knowledge embedded into it. That's what like the kind of mystery of the cathedrals is. It's objective art. Now, tangent aside, let's get back into it. Thanks to these consequences, not only does the cognition of these terrors, because remember, we're still talking about the terrors, does not arise in the psyche of these people. So NPC normie men who have too much Kunda buffer in their blood, the terror of death is not contemplated and does not arise in them whatsoever. But also for the purpose of self-quieting, or self-calming, sometimes you use that term. They even invent all kinds of fantastic explanations plausible to their naive logic for what they really sense, and also for what they do not sense at all. God, I love Gurdjieff. He's so sassy. As for instance, suppose that the solution of the question of our inability really to sense various possible genuine terrors, in particular the terror of one's own death, should become, so to say, a burning question of the day. We must become beings toward death, which occurs with certain questions in the contemporary life of people. Then in all probability, all contemporary people, ordinary mortals, as well as those called the learned. Now, he uses in turn inverted commas there, so I think he means people who are wiseacring, would categorically offer a solution, which they would not doubt for a moment, and, as is said, spluttering at the mouth, would set about to prove that what, in fact, saves people from being able to experience such terrors is just their own will. Nulu asks, does this stuff relate to why monastics and popes take on new names? I'm not sure what you mean, Nulu. I mean, that seems... the taking on the new name is also a tradition seen in other kind of things like kingship and whatnot. It seems more connected to a ruler who has some kind of axial place in the culture. When the person ascends to that place, they take on a kind of a new identity, a new persona. What about the emo kids that want to die, asks Kimberly. Yeah, so this is the problem that we're still waiting for Gurdjieff to answer. Because he's saying that the solution to the Kunda buffer is to contemplate death. But if you contemplate death, you just become a being towards death and you just want to die. And that's what the Kunda buffer was actually preventing. So it's a catch-22. So you need to contemplate death, but not so much that you become an emo kid and you get like locked into a kind of a, you know, I can't do anything, and kill yourself. But you also need to like actually contemplate death, or else it's just like, yeah, don't worry, nothing, it's all good. Just yeah, just, you know, give in to your desires and you'll live forever, right? There's these two extremes which we need to avoid. And it seems, at least in Gurdjieff's time, sorry, friggin' another guy. It seems in Gurdjieff's time, people were more, you know, emos hadn't happened. I mean, they were coming out of Victorian era, so maybe they were coming out of emo times, and they were getting into the hippie era, where it was just like, we're gonna live together, we're gonna go into outer space, man. So they were getting more into this section of indulging. And so Gurdjieff is trying to pull the pendulum more towards the middle by saying contemplate death. But I don't know, if Gurdjieff was around when emos were around, he'd be like, no, like he'd try to pull the pendulum back. You know what I'm saying, Kimberly? In order to sense and understand with your whole being what I am now saying, and not merely to understand with that, so to say, mind fornication of yours. Oh, baby, that's a great... People don't think. They just fornicate with the mind. Which, to the misfortune of our descendants, has become the dominant inherency of contemporary people. Picture to yourself now merely the following. Today, after the lecture, you return home, undress, and get into bed. But just as you are covering yourself with your blankets, a mouse jumps out from under the pillow and scuttles across your body, ducks into the folds of the blankets. Admit candidly, does not a shiver actually already run through the whole of your body merely at the bare thought of such a possibility? Is it not so? So I think like a modern day one would be like, imagine you open a bag of like dates or prunes or something, and you know they're little black fruits, oval things like black prunes. You take one out and you eat it, and as you're eating it, like and then you look into the bag and you see something moving, and you see a cockroach just come out from underneath the prunes and then just go back underneath the prunes again and go and you just seal the bag and like throw it in the bin, and you've already swallowed the first prune. Like think about that, how gross that sensation would be. Like that's another thing that could probably send a shiver through you. Happened to me once. True story. Now, please try to make an exception, and without the participation of any of that, so to say, subjective emotionlessness whatsoever which has become fixed in you, think with your mentation alone about such a possible occurrence to you, and you yourself will then be amazed that you react to this in this way. So that's interesting. Basically, so what he's saying here is when you visualize that, you visualize it with your mind, your intellectual cylinder, but also there's like this body reaction to it. But he's saying if you can view it in another way with just mentation alone. So this is interesting. With just the intellectual cylinder, you won't react. It'll just be, so you'll just see it kind of objectively, but I don't know about. Okay, let's see what he's saying. Let's see what he's saying. What is so terrifying in this? It is only an ordinary mouse, ordinary cockroach. It's just a bug, bro. The most harmless and inoffensive of beasts. Exactly. Cockroaches can't kill you. Now I ask you, how can all that has been said be explained by that which is presumed to be in every man? How is it possible to reconcile the fact that a man is terrified at a small timid mouse, the most frightened of all creatures, and of thousands of other similar trifles which might never even occur, and yet experiences no terror before the inevitability of his own death? So it seems like a lot of people what he's saying here is a lot of people put weight into certain things in their mind, but if they're able to just view it with mentation alone, they'd see the weight they put on it is irrelevant. In any case, it's like, say, you know, someone like disrespects you and makes you mad, and you just, you know, it's one of those memories that just comes into your mind every now and then. You're like, but if you would actually view that and recapitulate that memory in meditation and just view it with your mentation alone, just objectively, you would see that actually it doesn't really matter, and that guy was a loser, and you would cease to feel that way about it. Seems to be something of what he's saying here. In any case, to explain such an obvious contradiction by the action of the famous human will is impossible. Okay, that's interesting. When this contradiction is considered openly, without any preconceptions, that is to say, without any of the ready-made motions derived from the wiseacring of various what are called authorities, who in most cases have become such thanks to the naivety and herd instinct of people, as well as from the results depending on abnormal education which arise in our mentation, then it becomes indubitably. I love the word indubitably. People don't use it enough nowadays. People stopped using it at a point, and I'm like, oh, come on, let's bring it back. Indubitably evident that all these terrors, from which in man there does not arise the impulse, as we said, to hang himself, are permitted by nature herself, to the extent in which they are necessary for the process of our ordinary existence. And indeed, without them, Without all these in the objective sense, as is said, flea bites, but which appear to us as unprecedented terrors, there could not proceed in us any experiencing at all either of joy, sorrow, hope, disappointment, and so on, nor could we have all those cares, stimuli, strivings, and in general all kinds of impulses which constrain us to act, to attain to something, and to strive for some aim. This is really interesting, because what he's talking about is, you know how people who nowadays kind of meditate for, I don't know, mental reasons, maybe anxiety, maybe things like that. But then I see it on Twitter a lot, people being like, I meditated heaps and now I've lost my zest for life kind of thing. He's basically showing that internal process. If you actually do just purely mentate on things and don't have any of the physical vitality or emotional cylinder into it, yes, it dislodges you from your sorrows, but it also dislodges you from your joys, and you don't receive any stimuli after that. It's like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Is that something you're supposed to do in the work at some point, or is this something that you're actually supposed to avoid, or you do it for a certain while and then there's another work which you do and you leave that behind? Let's see what he's saying, why he's saying this. This is the hard thing about Gurdjieff. He like says something, but he says a bunch of things, and you have to kind of put it together because he's actually saying a big thing. But it's like there are many parts of it, and you need to kind of cognize them all at the same time to get the picture of what he's actually saying. He doesn't want to tell you straight up. He makes you work for it. Good Lord. It is just this totality of all these automatic, as they might be called, childish experiencings arising and following in the average man, which on the one hand make up and sustain his life, and on the other hand give him neither the possibility nor the time to see and feel reality. Okay, so he seems to be saying that this is something that you should be doing, because all of your normal terrors, like thinking about rent and and, you know, troubles and relationship troubles and work troubles and, you know, am I getting fat or something like that? All of these things you need to dislodge yourself from. These are childish experiencings. These are merely flea bites. And you need to try and touch reality itself. Because I think where he's going is there is something higher that we draw from, and that is where our real vitality, our real impulses will come from. Most of our impulses we have now, most of our wants and desires are merely reactions to exterior flea bites, as he says. But let's see if that's what he's actually saying. If the average contemporary man were given the possibility to sense or to remember, if only in his thought, that at a definite known date, for instance, tomorrow, a week, or a month, or even a year or two hence, he would die, and die for certain. So this is like Fight Club. For certain, what would then, or maybe the movie Saw, what would then remain, one asks, of all that had until then filled up and constituted his life? Everything would lose its sense of significance for him. What would be the importance, then, of the decoration he received yesterday for long service, and which had so delighted him, or that glance he recently noticed, so full of promise from the woman who had long been the object of his constant and unrewarded longing, or the newspaper with his morning coffee, that deferential greeting from the neighbor on the stairs, and the theatre in the evening, and rest and sleep, and all his favorite things, of what account would they all be? They would no longer have that significance which had been given them before, even if a man knew that death would overtake him only in 5 or 6 years. In short, to look his own death, as is said, in the face, the average man cannot and must not. Very interesting. So that's where Gurdjieff diverts from Fight Club. The average man cannot, but he also must not. Because if he did, he would just, everything in his life would lose luster and he'd hang himself. He would then, so to say, get out of his depth, and before him, in clear-cut form, the question would arise, why then should we live and toil and suffer? Exactly. Why do we drink? Just to pee? Precisely. That such a question may not arise, great nature, having become convinced that in the common presences of most people there have already ceased to be any factors for meritorious manifestations proper to three-centered beings, had providentially wisely protected them by allowing the arising in them of various consequences of the non-meritorious properties unbecoming to three-centered beings, which in the absence of a proper actualization conduce to their not perceiving or sensing reality. So nature allowed this to happen. Yeah, nature thinks we're hopeless. Nature loves us, but nature loves us, nature needs us, but nature doesn't need us to self-actualize. Just as long as we keep existing and pumping out baby, then nature will keep us here and cultivate us. But if we really want to leave, if we really want to actualize, we need to actualize something beyond these mere desires. And great nature has constrained to adapt herself to such an, in the objective sense, abnormality, in consequence of the fact that thanks to the conditions of their ordinary life established by people themselves, the deteriorating quality of their radiations required for higher common cosmic purposes instantly demanded for the maintenance of equilibrium and increase of the quantity of the arisings and existings of these lives, whereupon it follows that life in general is given to people not for themselves, but that this life is necessary for the said higher cosmic purposes. So I think he's referencing the facts that, you know, a higher being produces more Skokin than an NPC normie man who is nothing. But if you're not going to get higher beings, you just make a whole bunch of NPC normie men, and they kind of can create, like a group of them can create just as much as one truly higher being. So an like 1,000 NPC normie men make up for the lack of one truly ascended man. Hence why there's more people now in the world. It's not because, you know, reincarnation and there's just more souls now. It's just like Hylic people are just being created by nature who don't have anything in them whatsoever that's going to perpetuate. And they don't really care. They're fine on TikTok, just doom scrolling. There's just several million people that actually don't have anything permanent within them. And it's just nature creates them and keeps them there and keeps them perpetuating just to kind of get that extra Skokin. Yeah, I remember your million rats thing, bruh. But this life is unnecessary for high cosmic purposes, in consequence of which great nature watches over this life, so that it may flow in a more or less tolerable form, takes care that it should not prematurely cease. Do not we people ourselves also feed, watch over, look after, and make the lives of our sheep and pigs as comfortable as possible? Exactly. That's what nature does for nature. What we do, we animal husbandry and rear animals, nature is doing that for us. We're just in the stock cage. We're in an animal farm of nature, and nature feeds on us. Do we do all this because we value their lives, for the sake of their lives? No. We do all this in order to slaughter them one fine day and to obtain the meat we require with as much fat as possible. That's nature. Yeah, she loves us. She loves us because we're nice and juicy. In the same way, nature takes all measures to ensure that we shall live without seeing the terror and that we should not hang ourselves, but live long. And then, when we are required, she slaughters us. This is good. This is good. Under the established conditions of ordinary life of people, this has now already become an immutable law of nature. Outtuition, neglectful cold father time, and BPD psycho mother nature. Exactly. There is in our life a certain very great purpose, and we must all serve this great common purpose. In this lies the whole sense and predestination of our life. So nature wants to keep us fat for herself. And time is just this neglectful entropy that actually just wants to decay the universe. But his sovereign endlessness, the true God that's beyond time, the demiurge, who lives in the absolute, he wants us to revolute. His sovereign endlessness, which is, we call him he, but it's like beyond man and woman. Our eternal mother father within the absolute wants us to revolute because they actually need our permanent causal bodies and objective being reason to fight time, fight the demiurge. So we do have one person on our side. It's like, it's not the mother or the father, it's the it's the father, mother, stepdad of the Gnostics, the Barbello, if you will. All people, without exception, are slaves of this greatness, and all are compelled willy-nilly to submit and to goon continuously, to fulfill without condition or compromise what has been predestined for each of us by his transmitted hereditary and his acquired being. Now, after all that I have said, returning to the chief theme of the lecture here, lecture read here today, this is just, I can see in Gurdjieff so much Gnosticism now. Like, I used to think Gurdjieff was just his own thing, and maybe you could class him as a Hermeticist. I see so much Gnosticism in Gurdjieff now. 100%. I wish to refresh your memory about what has several times been referred to in defining man, the expressions real man and a man in quotation marks, and in conclusion to say the following. Although the real man, who has already acquired his own I, and also the man in quotation marks, who has not, are equally slaves of the said greatness. Yet the difference between them, as I have already said, consists in this, that since the attitude of the former to his slavery is conscious, he acquires the possibility simultaneously with serving the all-universe actualizing of applying a part of his manifestations according to the providence of great nature for the purpose of acquiring for himself imperishable being, whereas the latter, not cognizing his slavery, serves during the flow of his entire process of his existence exclusively only as a thing, which when no longer needed disappears forever. So one goons his life away and the other edges into higher purpose. In order to make what I have just said more comprehensible and concrete, it will be, and the difference between gooning and edging is the edger consciously realizes that he is a slave of nature. And he renders unto nature what is nature's, but then he develops within himself something for the eternal. It will be useful if we compare human life in general to a large river which rises from various sources and flows on the surface of our planet, and the life of any given man to one of the drops of water composing his river of life. Oh, that's an interesting one. Outtuition, like someone who is forced into slavery remembers what freedom is like and can imagine an escape, while one born into slavery may never conceive the possibility of anything outside his chains. Exactly. Exactly. That's what Hylics are. Hylics are just created beings in slavery. And when they die, they just die. Whereas us, there's something in us. We're just like, nah, man. Nah. We got we got to get out, bruh. But it's like what's the old kind of slavery laws where it's like the slave could actually earn $1 and could earn enough to eventually buy their own kind of contracts and they could stop being a slave. That's the kind of situation we're in. Like nature isn't an American plantation owner that's just like, pick the cotton, boy. Nature is more like, I need some stuff. If you give me payment, you can have your freedom. That's what nature is. She's a harsh mistress. Nature is a dommy mummy with a whip, but if we pay her enough, she'll like, you know, she'll loosen the chains. The river at first flows as a whole along a comparatively level valley, and at that place where nature has particularly undergone what is called a cataclysm, not according to lore, it is divided into two separate streams, or as it is also said, there occurs in this river a dividing of the waters. How esoteric. Neo-Stoicism. Howdy, welcome to the chat. Tyler says everyone should read Frederick Douglass. Okay. I haven't read Frederick Douglass, so maybe I'll check it out. Adamu says, I just think we've been through the windmill. A few more cycles more. Yeah. And so for whatever reason, maybe we were all alive in ancient Atlantis and Egypt. And we weren't like the leaders, but we were like, in Atlantis, we were like grunts who just got initiated into the initiatic colleges in Atlantis. And then the wave hit. And then we all kind of, but something perpetuated. And then in Egypt, we were kind of there, like just hanging out. And we got initiated again, but we didn't become full initiates. And now we're back now in this race. And we're just like, we got to get out, bruh. Not again. Not another one. Read the autobiography at least. Okay. Autobiography of Frederick Douglass. I'll put it on the list. That face when never got to go to Atlantean Priest King College prom. Exactly, bro. Exactly. All the water of one stream, soon after passing this place, flows into a still more level valley, and with no surrounding, what is called majestic and picturesque scenery to hinder it, ultimately flows into the vast ocean. The second stream, continuing its flow over places formed by the consequences of the said cataclysm, not according to lore, ultimately falls into crevices in the earth themselves, also consequences of the same cataclysm, and seeps into the very depths of the earth. I wonder if this is symbolic. Most people come from the ocean and exist for a while as like little ponds and lakes, but after a while they go back to the ocean, and some people are able to maintain themselves and actually, or instead of going back to the ocean, go deep into the earth, into the origin of all. That's interesting. The second stream, continuing its flow over places formed by consequences of the said cataclysm, not according to law, ultimately fall into the crevice of the earth themselves, also consequences of the same cataclysm, and seep into the very depths. Yes, sorry, I read that. Although, after the branching of the waters of both these streams flow further independently and no longer mingle. Yet along the whole extent of their further course, they frequently approach so near each other that all the results engendered from the process of their flowing blend, and even at times during great atmospheric phenomena, such as storms, winds, and so on, splashes of water, or even separate drops pass from one stream to another. So even though we are NPC normie men at the moment, or we're in the kind of the ocean stream, we can still get drops, we can still get information from streams that have differentiated themselves. We can get knowledge from higher people who have come before us. Individually, the life of every man, up to his reaching responsible age, corresponds to a drop of water in the initial flow of the river, and the place where the dividing of the waters occurs corresponds to the time when he attains adulthood. You gotta hop streams, baby. Never cross streams. You gotta hop from one to the other. After this branching, any considerable subsequent movement, according to law, both of this river as well as of any of the small details of this movement for the actualization of the predetermined destination of the whole river, applies equally to every separate drop, just insofar as the given drop is in the general totality of this river. Okay? For the drop itself, all its own displacements, directions, and states caused by the differences of its position, by its various accidentally arisen surrounding conditions, and by the accelerated or retarded tempo of its movements, have always a totally accidental character. So most people, it's the law of accidents that rules their life. But even the law of accidents may be able to push them on the path, which is interesting. So even though Hylics are Hylic, even a Hylic has a chance to become real. For the drops, there is not a separate predetermination of their personal fate. A predetermined fate is for the whole river only. So yeah, okay. So the river as a whole. So a society as a whole may be, even if society as a whole is going downstream, going to be dissolved into the ocean, if our society is on the verge of apocalypse, single drops can still escape and go to the other stream. It's never too late. It's never too late. PP big. PP big. Let's go. At the beginning of the flow of the river, the lives of drops are here one moment, there the next moment, and a moment later they might not at all be as they are, but splashed out of the river and evaporated. And so, when, on account of the unbecoming life of people, great nature was constrained to engender the corresponding in their common presences, then from that time on, it was so established for the purposes of the common actualizing of everything existing that human life in general on the earth should flow in two streams. And great nature foresaw, and gradually fixed in the details of her common actualization such a corresponding law conformableness, that in the drops of water of the initial flow of the river of life, which have corresponding inner subjective what are called struggles of one's own self-denial, there might arise or not arise that something, thanks to which certain properties are acquired, giving the possibility, at the place of the branching of the waters of the river of life, of entering one or the other stream. Let's go, baby. Let's go. This something which in the common presence of a drop of water is a factor actualizing in it the property corresponding to one or another of the streams, is in the common presence of each man who attains responsible age, that I, which was referred to in today's lecture. A man who has in his common presence his own eye. And so this is interesting. Your eye, is your eye you? Your eye isn't you, but you can become in possession of an eye. Enters one of the streams of the river of life, and the man who has not enters the other. The subsequent fate of any drop in the general river of life as is determined at the dividing of the waters according to the stream the drop happens to enter. And it is determined, as has already been said, by the fact that one of these two streams ultimately empties itself into the ocean, that is, into that sphere of general nature which often has what is called repeated reciprocal exchange of substances between various great cosmic concentrations. So you become food for the moon. Through the process of what is called Pok Dal Isjanchar, a part of which process, by the way, contemporary people name cyclone. Oh. So cyclones are caused by excess ascokin that then piles up and blows around. That's weird. In consequence of which this drop of water has the possibility to evolve as it is as it is to the next higher concentration. Our tuition asks, I'm he as you are he, as you are me, and we are all together. Am I the Eggman? No. No. That's only if you're a pantheistic egg person, cosmic egg person, and you just want to be dissolved back into the ocean. That's not the point. That's actually not the point of spirituality that Gurdjieff is saying. It's actually something else, to jump to another stream. So it's interesting because even though Gurdjieff seems to not like left-hand path methods, he seems to have this same aim, this antinomian, believing something or not. Merely believing something, changing your beliefs, isn't going to do anything. You need to do something. But at the same time, that something is to create a divine individuality, something that is differentiated from the ocean. And at the end of the flow of the other stream, as has already been said, into the crevices of the Earth's nether regions. Once again, PP, the PP is mentioned, where it participates in the continuous process called involutionary construction, which proceeds within the planet. It is transformed into stream and distributed into corresponding spheres of new arisings. This sounds more like involutory. He's talking about people who become Hasnamusans, and they actually go into the earth and they just get dissolved completely, or the stuff, their qualities are burnt out of them, so then they can experience new arisings because they had no potential in them whatsoever. So is it the point to become a kind of a gas cloud then? And you can become a part, if you get dissolved into the ocean, you become a cyclone anyway, but it's to do it consciously, and you can do it as an individual and not as a part of the masses. Is that what he's saying? After the branching of the waters, great and small, successive law conformableness and details for the outer movement for the purpose of actualizing the predetermined destination of both streams also ensue from the same cosmic laws, but only the results ensuing from them are, so to say, subjectivized for both streams correspondingly. And although they begin to function independently, so it's like neither stream is good, you actually just got to differentiate yourself outside of the stream into a cloud. You got to get to the clouds, boy. Yet all the time they mutually assist and sustain each other. These subjectivized second-grade results issuing from, or is he saying the maybe he's using involutionary as in you go inwards. Because that's, involution has two connotations. Either involution as in it's just like a de-evolution, you're going down to hell, and you're just getting processed by the cauldron of nature, or it's involution as you're going inwards, inner. And that's, you're revoluting in that sense. These subjectivized second-grade results issuing from fundamental cosmic laws sometimes function side by side, sometimes collide or cross, but never mix. So that's interesting. They collide. So they do touch peepees sometimes, but they never mix. The actions of these subjectivized second-grade results can sometimes, under certain surrounding conditions, spread also over the separate drops. For us contemporary people, the chief evil is that we, thanks to the various conditions of our ordinary existence established by us ourselves, chiefly in consequence of the abnormal what is called education, attaining a responsible age and acquiring presences which correspond only to that stream of the river of life, which ultimately empties itself into the nether regions, enter it, and are carried along where and whither it wills, and without pondering about the consequences, we remain passive and submitting to the flow, drift, and so on. Oh, okay, so is he saying the people who go down into the... So involution is bad, going into the center of the earth is bad. That's what he... So that's the... You're just going down and processing. So it is actually... Okay, so the river that does go into the ocean is the good river. Okay, okay. So he is a right-hand path boy. Professor Vince, glad I've been to Atlantis with you guys, but I think I'm a hardcore Hasnamus, and nah, you're fine, you're fine. Hope the stream has been epic. Just tuning in. Oh, self-dribbling basketball, howdy, howdy. Cloud of Unknowing. Is it any good? Yeah. Cloud of Unknowing's great. Cloud of Unknowing's great if you want to walk the path of the monk or the mystic. Don't they say if you have to ascend, you have to descend? Yes. Yes. But he's talking not about a conscious descent. That's the problem. These people are, due to their education, are just sent down a stream without them realizing it. Without them realizing that there's another option even. And they're sent down that stream completely blindly, and they're just going to go and descend and nothing. That's the problem. That's the chief evil of the existence. Because it's... And that's what I feel, why I kind of like have this really hatred against materialism. Because I feel like I got sent down that stream, and it's like I had this realization of where it was going, but everyone around me was just like, yeah, but there's no other options. And it's like, no, there is another option. No, I'm not going to swear. But it's like, motherfucker. And so it's like, there's another option. There's another river. We got to get to the other side. Oh, self-dribbling basketball. Got 1.5 chapters left of In Search of the Miraculous. Pretty good. Nice, nice. I find the later chapters of In Search of the Miraculous is like the first two-thirds. That's the best. Last third is very speculative on Ouspensky's part, but still good. It's still good. Lucerne says, would he be against the Agori? It depends which ones. Depends. It depends. You just got to break through to the other side. So as long as we remain passive, not only shall we have inevitably to serve solely as a means for nature, involutionary and evolutionary construction, but also for the rest of our lives, we shall have to submit slavishly to every caprice of all sorts of blind events. Pardon me. As most of the hearers present have already, as is said, crossed over into responsible age, and frankly cognize that until now they have not acquired their own eye, and at the same time, according to the substance of all I have said here, have not pictured for themselves any particularly agreeable perspectives, then in order that you, just you who cognize this, so he's literally just speaking to us, the readers now, should not be greatly, as is said, disheartened, and should not fall into the usual what is called pessimism, everywhere prevalent. So don't become an emo boy. Everywhere prevalent in the contemporary abnormal life of people. I say quite frankly, without any arrière-pensée. Arrière-pensée. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Concealed thought or intention. Okay. So he says without any concealing, that according to my convictions, which have been formed thanks to long years of investigation, strengthened by numerous quite exceptionally conduct experiments on the results of which are based, Gurdjieff, the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man, founded by me, even for you, it is not yet too late. Let's go. Sorry, inserts goth JD Vance meme. I just read that title. That's funny. That's funny. The point is that the said investigations and experiments showed me very clearly and very definitely that in everything under the care of Mother Nature, the possibility is foreseen for beings to acquire the kernel of their essence, that is to say, their own I, even after the beginning of their responsible age also. Okay, so original education back in Atlantis was supposed to develop you so that you become a being on the other stream. Yeah, Schopenhauer in shambles, that's pretty funny. It develops you to a specific being so that when you're initiated into adulthood, you automatically go to the ocean, not to the center of the earth. Not to hell, but to the ocean where your more possibilities arise. The problem is our education is so toxic now that it doesn't do that, and we go down the other stream into the center of the earth to be dissolved into nothing. And that's it. And but even there's still possibilities that if we awaken on that stream, we can still jump over. There is time. There is time. Even if you wake up and you're 60 years old, and you've been living a completely materialistic life, you can still do something before you die. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Do not despair. The foresight of just Mother Nature consists in the given case in this, that the possibility is given to us in certain inner and outer conditions to cross over from one stream into another. Big peepee. Throbbing, actually. The expression which has reached us from ancient times, the first liberation of man, refers to just this possibility of crossing from the stream which is predestined to disappear into the nether regions, into the stream which empties itself into the vast space of boundless ocean. Come on, let's go into the infinite space. Let's all attain infinite space. Let's go, baby. To cross into the other stream is not so easy, merely to wish, and you cross. For this, it is first of all necessary consciously to crystallize in yourself data for engendering in your common presences a constant, unquenchable impulse of desire for such a crossing, and then afterwards a long corresponding preparation. So this is interesting. He doesn't say work for it. What he says is you should absorb as much theory as possible and then prepare. So not even to go on retreat, but prepare for a massive work. For this crossing, it is necessary, first of all, to renounce all the what seem to you blessings, but which are in reality automatically and slavishly acquired habits present in this stream of your life. In other words, it is necessary to become dead to what has become, for you, your ordinary life. It is just this death that is spoken of in all religions. So this is you die to life. You must become dead to what has become, for you, your ordinary life. I guess this is just dead to the NPC, the things that make you an NPC normie, man. You need to die to them. And what does it mean to die to them? It means to just not desire them. But it means more than that. Because people have this weird notion of ego death. I'm going to go off on a tangent. I know we're getting low on time. But let me give you this. Let me give you this. If someone shows you porn on their phone, like they just come up to you and go, "Hey bro, check this out," and you're like, oh, I didn't even know it could stretch like that. That's a normal reaction, okay? You don't need to be at a level where you just look at it completely equanimously and are not affected, and I'm not affected by such things. No. You're a normal human. You see it and it affects you. If I put you in a room with nothing in it, it's just like a white padded room, and there's a chair, and you sit in the chair. You sit in the chair and you close your eyes, and you continuously think of like lustful images, sexual images. You got a problem. If I show you a lustful image and you react to it, that's not a problem. That's just a normal human thing. But if then 6 months after that, you think about that same image every day, you got a problem. You got a problem. This is what it means to die to the things in life. Because we got to still participate in life. Remember, we don't leave life. We're not going to an ashram. The fourth way is done within life. So it's not that you don't take pleasure in your cup of tea in the morning. You need to die to the cup of tea you take in the morning. Or else you're not on the path. That's not what Gurdjieff is saying. What Gurdjieff is saying is, we do stuff and then we hold on to it. And because we hold on to it, it becomes a problem, because then when we try to actually practice and we sit and close our eyes, what comes up is all of the goon slop, goy vision, news stories that just we've absorbed throughout the day. And it just churns and we can't even stop it. So it's to basically be able to release those impressions that strike us. Because this is the conscious thing. It's like you can be conscious and receive impressions in a certain way, and to have that being understanding, where the impression doesn't just hit your intellectual cylinder, but it strikes all of your cylinders, and if you're self-remembering at the same time, you're able to observe the process of it in the cylinders. Like, that is a transformation, that achieves a transformation within you. But you're able to also do that after the fact by sitting down and kind of closing your eyes and kind of contemplating. That's the second conscious shock, where you kind of bring memory forward, and through mentation, you're able to release certain things. And so it's like, yeah, I'm just putting that there as a, because when people say it's like you need to become dead to the world, it's like then they get caught up in, oh, you like things? You're not dead to the world then. You haven't died to the world then. You're not on the path. It's like, bro, calm the fuck down. Anyway, just thought I'd add that there. It is just this death that is spoken of in all religions. Sorry, I just read Self-Dribbling Basketball. As a Balatro gamer, I just read that and it made me laugh. I have no impressions, no thoughts, just self-remembering of every... Sorry, that's funny. That's really funny. You know, I still actually haven't played a game of Balatro. Should I get into Balatro, Self-Dribbling Basketball? Tell me about it. It is defined in the saying, because I've seen the Let's Plays and I've seen people play it, and I'm just like, no. But anyway, tell me if I should. It is defined in the saying which has reached us from remote antiquity: without death, no resurrection. Okay? That is to say, if you do not die, you will not be resurrected. Yeah, okay, I get it. The death referred to is not the death of the body, exactly, since for such a death there is no need for resurrection. For if there is a soul, and moreover an immortal soul, it can dispense with a resurrection of the body. Logical. Nor is the necessity of resurrection our appearance before the awful judgment of the Lord God, as we have been taught by the fathers of the church. No, even Jesus Christ, all the other prophets sent from above, spoke of the death which might occur even during life. Based, what is to say of the death of that tyrant from whom proceeds our slavery in this life, and whose destruction can also alone assure the first chief liberation of man? There is a tyrant oppressing us. Summing up, and so the defeating of the tyrant and the dying to ourselves is the same thing. Someone asked before in the chat, like, what's the thing, the general, when I was using the general and the army explanation, and it's like, what's the enemy that they're fighting? Summing up all that has been said, the thoughts set out in the lecture you have read, as well as what I have added today, that is about the two categories of contemporary people who, in respect of inner content, have nothing in common. Oh boy, this is a huge paragraph. And about that grievous fact which has been made clear to a certain degree thanks to the addition I have made. Namely, that in the common presences of people in recent times, thanks to progressively deteriorating conditions of ordinary life, established by us, particularly owing to the wrong system of education of the arising generation, the various consequences of the organ Kundabuffer have begun to arise much more intensely, I consider it necessary to say, and even to emphasize still more, that all misunderstandings, without exception, arising in the process of our collective life, particularly in the sense of reciprocal relationship, and all disagreements, disputes, settling ups, and hasty decisions, just these decisions, after the actualization of which in practice there arises in us a lingering process of remorse of conscience. So this is interesting. Gurdjieff talks about remorse of conscience, or remorse. Remorse is different from shame. And this is the thing. Shame is just a negative emotion. Remorse seems to be something different. In church, they talk about repentance, but repentance is a wrong translation of a Greek word called metanoia, which literally means something like to turn around and walk away. You turn away, and it's like a psychological thing. You have repentance for a thing. You have, what is it, metanoia. I keep mixing up metanoia with eudaimonia. I'm pretty sure it's metanoia. Metanoia is there's an action you do and you turn away from it, and psychologically you don't do it anymore. It's more of a psychological thing. To repent for something, it means you don't do it. And that's what I think Gurdjieff means by remorse of conscience, is the conscience has a conscience that if you have remorse of conscience, that means you've achieved metanoia. You've gained understanding of certain psychic processes and actions, and there's actually something within you that's not intellectual, not emotional, not just movement, but something that's qualitative, all of them at the same time, and it's conscious. There is a remorse or a metanoia, a change, and those processes, whether they be motor, emotional, and intellectual, all of them have changed. All of them move away from that action. So qualitatively, remorse of conscience means you've made a change within your being itself. And that's real death. That is real death. Bruh. So I'm just reading what Adamu said. No, the real enemy is within Adamu, okay? The final solution is the internal solution. Now, remorse of consciousness, and even such great events as civil wars, how very pertinent. Civil wars and other similar misfortunes of a general character proceed simply on account of a property in the common presences of ordinary people, who have never specially worked on themselves, which property I this time would call the reflecting of reality in one's attention upside down. That's pretty funny. So all wars would disappear, according to Gurdjieff, if people actually worked on themselves and were actually able to achieve metanoia, or remorse of conscience. Every man, if he can even a little seriously think, so to say, without being identified with his passions, must agree with this if he takes into account merely one single fact, often repeated in the process of our inner life, namely that all our experiencings, which at first, just at the moment, they are still proceeding in us, seem to be stark terrors, appear after the lapse of only an insignificant time, and when these experiencings have been replaced by others and are recalled by chance, and when according to our logical reasoning we are already in another mood, not worth, as is said, a brass farthing. Yeah, so this is a part of when you're trying to self-remember or self-observe. It's like you can see something and you can have a huge reaction to it, but then it just, another mood arises. There's nothing consistent. Another guy, the crows are stream sniping Richard again. Yeah. I've got those crows that are like the sarcastic crows, where sometimes if you listen to them and they don't just crow, they go like, wow, wow, wow. And I'm like, bro, stop being sarcastic, bro. Freaking hell, Adamu. Joshua, knowing you're doing wrong, actively changing that which is wrong is the difference between knowledge and being. Here's the thing, can you do it? Knowing you're doing wrong, let me just close the window. Like, you want to lose weight, knowing that you shouldn't eat chocolate, can you stop eating chocolate? Can you resist? It's tough. It's tough. You got to have consciousness. You need to have the foresight to go into the world, to look into the future. But you also need to have the level of being, the level of willpower necessary to actually change things. There you go. Got some people talking outside. I hope it's not disturbing the stream. Now, the average man, because we've gone over, and it's like, I want to try and finish this now. We've only, how many pages have we got left, guys? In the average man, the results of his mentation and feelings often lead to this, that as it might be expressed, a fly becomes an elephant, and an elephant a fly. The manifestations in the common presences of the said people of this maleficent property is a particularity intently actualized just during such events as wars, revolutions, civil wars, and so on. Just 4 pages left. Let's go. Bro, you got me. You got me. My wife just came in and was like, the internet's out. I'm like, what? Bruh. Just during these events, the state, even constated, by them is particularly sharply manifested under the action of which they all with few exceptions fall, and which they call mass psychosis. The essence of this state consists in this, that every people receiving in their already feeble mentation, which at such times becomes still more feeble, shocks from the maleficent stories of some or another lunatic, becoming, in the full sense of the word, victims of these malicious stories, manifest themselves completely automatically. You know, you hear, this is the, there's war crimes happening in this country. We need to go in and stop them and give them democracy now. I think that's what he's talking about. And they're lunatics, the people who say that are lunatics. So that's very funny. During the period when they find themselves under the action of a scourge which has already become of contemporary ordinary people, their inalienable inherency, there already entirely ceases to exist in their common presences the sacred, what is called conscience. The data for the possibility of the acquisition of great nature endowed them with a godlike beings in differentiation from mere animals. Bro, what was that sentence? The conscience, remember, being conscience, if we remember from Beelzebub's tales, Beelzebub says being conscience, or what he calls conscience, is within our subconsciousness. It's a attribute of the being that was saved from being warped by being placed in our subconscious region. So we can retrieve that from the subconsciousness. And what it does is it is something that is then objective within us. It's an objective eye within us that can then observe these other eyes within us and can kind of give a proper critique so that we can achieve metanoia, change, remorse. Because if we don't have conscience, what happens when you observe ourselves? I did a bad thing. No, I didn't. And you rationalize your actions. Or You fantasize. I did a bad thing, and you just whip yourself all the time. And you make an ant into an elephant, and an elephant into an ant. You need conscience to arise within you. Have an objective, a little something objective in you. So that objective thing can then see the impression process within you. And you can not just have an impression, be balanced man, and have impressions strike your entire being, but have a conscious understanding of its processing within your being. So it's like you feed your being, and you also have this, the being itself has consciousness of itself. This is prerequisite for gaining metanoia or remorse or true change. Let's go. Informed people sincerely regret just this inherency in contemporary people because, according to historical data and also to experimental elucidations of numerous genuine learned beings of past epochs, great nature has already long ceased to have need for such a phenomenon as mass psychosis for her equilibrium. Rather the contrary, such a periodically arising inherency in people compels her always to new adaptations, as for instance, increasing the birth rate, changing the what is called tempo of the general psyche, and so on and so forth. So baby boomers are just nature trying to readjust after a great war. Boom. Too many people? Well, time for mass psychosis. Nature makes people psychotic and then has another war. Sneed and feed, guys. Formerly Chucks. Chucks, seed and feed. After all I have said, I consider it necessary to say and even emphasize further that all the historical data which have reached contemporary people and which have chanced to become known also to me, namely the historical data concerning what really did occur in the past in the life of people, and not just those data invented by contemporary what are called learned beings, chiefly from among the Germans, which with which histories all the rising generation is stuffed almost everywhere on the earth, clearly show that people of former epochs did not divide into two streams of life, but that all flowed along in a single river. This is the progress of rationalism. The way we're taught history is people in the past were stupid poopy bum, and we are all rational people because we progressed, and we just need to make people more rational, and then everything will be solved because science will save the day. This is a lie. This is the great lie. The general life of mankind has been divided into two streams since the time of what is called the Ticlamician civilization, since the fall of Babylon, which directly preceded the Babylonian civilization. Okay, so he's going literal with this one. That's actually interesting because this is outside of the narrative, and he still refers to the Ticleamish civilization. So remember, for those who weren't there, the civilization Ticleamish is a civilization that Gurdjieff claims is post-Atlantean, but prehistory. So we have no historical memory of this civilization, but it's post the fall of Atlantis. Self-dribbling basketball. Borges has a quote that's like, no man goes to the same river twice because the water is constantly flowing and man just as much changes. I think he's quoting Heraclitus when Borges says that. Which directly preceded, yes. It is, and so when Gurdjieff is talking about these two streams, he's talking about the streams of life in particular, as in some people, they are just going towards the abyss, and other people are transforming themselves into the absolute. And you gotta jump from one stream to another. That's what he's talking about. It was just from then on that there gradually began to be and ultimately was finally established that organization of the life of mankind, which, as every sane thinking man ought to constate, can now flow more or less tolerably only if people are divided into masters and slaves. 100% Gurdjieff read Nietzsche. Although to be either master or slaves in a collective existence among children, like ourselves, of the common father, is unworthy of a man. Yet thanks at the present time to the conditions existing, which have already been thoroughly fixed in the process of the collective life of people, the source of which lies in remote antiquity, we must be reconciled to it, and accept a compromise that, according to impartial reasoning, should correspond both to our own personal welfare, and also, at the same time, not be contrary to the commandments specially issuing to us from the prime source of everything existing. Such a compromise, I think, is possible if certain people consciously set themselves as the chief aim of their existence to acquire in their presences all the corresponding data to become masters among those around them similar to themselves, based, proceeding from this and acting according to the wise saying of ancient times, affirming that in order to be in reality a just and good altruist, it is inevitably required, first of all, to be an out-and-out egoist. Hold on a second. So to be a good altruist is to be an egoist. Wait, is he approving of Max Stirner here? What? And also profiting by the good sense given us by great nature. Each one of us must set for his chief aim to become, in the process of our collective life, a master. Okay. So it seems like it's one of those things. It's like you need to be selfish and then gain something, and then once you gain something, then you can be magnanimous and give to others. But before then, you're just working off fumes. You don't have anything to give. Shut the fuck up, Brian. You just gotta be an egoist, focus on yourself, and then once you attain mastery, then you can pee on other people. I'm sorry. But not a master. I'm sorry, I'm just... God, I'm dumb. Why do I laugh at silly stuff? But not a master in that sense. And then you guys just roll with it. God damn. Oh my God, you make me laugh. Golden Reign of Gnosis. But not a master in that sense and meaning which this word conveys to contemporary people. Namely, one who has many slaves and much money. So you're not a master as in like a slave master, handed down, many money, handed down in most cases by inheritance, but in the sense that a given man, thanks to his, in the objective sense, devout acts towards those around him, that is to say, acts manifested by him according to the dictates of his pure reason alone. So you manifest actions not as reactions to the world, but through internal cognition that arises from your own eye. You can actually do things. Things don't just happen to you. Most people, all that they are whatever happened to them. You need to achieve the ability to acquire the faculty of epigenesis. Epigenesis, to begin something truly new by yourself. I think this is why art is a good thing to pursue, because that is a good litmus test to create something truly original. Even if you do the path of philosophy, to create a truly original idea requires this, that it's something within you, that it requires something within you that doesn't just react to impressions in the world, but something that's able to be truly original and come from something higher within you, or something permanent within you at the very least. The golden stream is the one not this salty normie stream. We want to become a part of the golden stream. The golden stream is stored in the balls. Schizoprophet, you have to actually be You have to actually be you, otherwise why would you expect anything to respond to you when you don't even respect yourself enough to be your complete self? It's, you need a permanent I. That's what it means to have a self. That's what it means to be. Now, that is to say, acts manifested by him according to the dictates of his pure reason alone, without the participation of those impulses, which in him, as in all people, are engendered from the mentioned consequences of the properties of the maleficent organ Kunda buffer, acquires in himself that something which of itself constrains all those about him to bow before him and with reverence carry out his orders. Hold on a second. Impulses within him are engendered something which of itself constrains. Yeah. So you have incarnated a solar force which has dominion within you. Within you, it has dominion over your desires, your impulses, your memories, your actions, your habits. To be a master means there's something solar within you. The sun, the internal sun, the midnight sun. The midnight sun doesn't set at night. The midnight sun. Sol Invictus, the invincible sun. There needs to be something permanent within you that has dominion over these mere impulses from the Kunda buffer. Out of curiosity, has any autist counted the number of O's and Soma boys and their various proportions, hidden meanings? One guy I know did actually say there's like a law of 7 cadence throughout the entire book, but I'm like, that's too... I can't follow, I'm not musical enough to like follow that. I now consider this first series of my writings ended, and ended in just such a form that satisfies even myself. Now, self-stroking here, baby, let's go. Stroke it, Gurji. Stroke it, boy. Stroke it, queen. We did it. In any case, I give my word that from tomorrow I shall not waste even 5 minutes of my time on this first series. And now, before beginning work on the second series of my writings, in order to put them, from my point of view, into a generally accessible form, I intend to rest for a whole month, to write positively nothing, and for a stimulus to my organism, fatigued to the extreme limit, slowly to drink the still remaining 15 bottles of super heavenly nectar, called at the present time on Earth Old Calvados. Bruh. Okay. So basically he's saying, now that he's finished this book, he's not going to waste any time. He's immediately going to take a month off to digest and drink drink his favorite... What is this, a cognac? What is this? Roger Grolt. What is this, a whiskey, a brandy? Oh, okay, it's whiskey, right? Calvados, 16 years old. Damn. Looks like they do brandy as well. No, I have no idea which one he's referring to. Apple brandy. What a Gurdjieff thing to say. This old Calvados, by the way, 27 bottles. Oh, he's going to drink 27 bottles over a month. Of it, I was thought worthy to find, accidentally covered over with a mixture of lime, sand, and finely chopped straw, several years ago when I was digging a pit for preserving carrots for the winter in one of the cellars of my now chief dwelling place. These bottles of this divine liquid were buried in all probability by monks who lived nearby, far from worldly temptations for the salvation of their souls. It now seems to me, for some reason or other, that they buried these bottles there, not without some ulterior motive, and that thanks to their what is called intuitive perspicacity, the data of which particular of theirs, one must assume, was formed in them thanks to their pious lives. They foresaw that the buried divine liquid would fall into the hands worthy of understanding the meaning of such things. So this sounds very veiled. He's drinking booze made from monks that they put there themselves. It sounds like they've imbued something alchemically in it. What does he do? And this is interesting. I remember Ouspensky saying one of the reasons he left Gurdjieff is Gurdjieff had gone too close towards the way of the monk. And Ouspensky was like, I need to save the work from Gurdjieff. It's very interesting that he mentions this now. It's almost like he's saying he needs to saturate himself in the way of the monk. Huh. And now, indeed, this liquid stimulates the owner of these hands praiseworthily to sustain and assist the better transmission to the next generation of the meaning of the ideals on which the cooperation of these monks was founded. I wish during this rest of mine, which from any point of view I fully deserve to drink this splendid liquid, which alone during recent years has given me the possibility of tolerating without suffering the beasts similar to myself around me, and to listen to new anecdotes, and sometimes for lack of new ones, old ones, of course, if there happen to be competent raconteurs. It is now still midday, and as I have given my word that I should not, beginning only from tomorrow, write anything further for the first series, I still have time, and shall not be breaking my word if I add with a clean conscience that a year or two ago I had categorically decided to make only the first series of my published writings generally accessible, and as regards the second and third series, to make them not generally accessible, but to organize their distribution in order, among other things, to actualize through them one of the fundamental tasks I have set myself under Essence Oath. A task which consists in this, ultimately also to prove without fail, theoretically, as well as practically, to all my contemporaries, the absurdity of all their inherent ideas concerning the supposititious existences of a certain other world, with its famous and so beautiful paradise, and its so repugnant a hell, and at the same time to prove theoretically, and afterwards, without fail, to show practically, so that even every complete victim of contemporary education should understand, without shuddering, and know that hell and paradise do indeed exist, but only not there in that world, but here beside us on Earth. So this is we live in nature, but a part of nature is occulted to us. So it's not that there's another dimension per se that we go to. It's that in the same way that a flatlander is bound to 2 dimensions, we are bound in time and space to 3 dimensions. And once again, I use dimension loosely here, but there is a part, in the same way that the flatlander is bound to 2 dimensions, but it's in the 3rd dimension. If you lift it up, it can see the 3rd dimension. We are, and you can extrapolate that to 4th dimension, 5th dimension, but really there's no dimensions. There's just one dimension, one nature, and parts of that nature are occulted to us. So we change our states of being, and we can go to hell, we can go to heaven on this world as we wish. This is all very interesting, very based. Richard, remember to make a new overlay for Knowledge of Higher Worlds. Well, for the Secret Teachings of All Ages, you mean. Although I could do Knowledge of Higher Worlds on stream as well. God, there's so many good books to do. But yes, that's another. I'm going to have to get to that today, another guy. And maybe I'll even have to do an intro video to bring in some new people into the chat. After the books of the first series have all been published, I intend for the spreading. Looks like someone's about to start a lawnmower, so let's go. We're mixing it up. I published I intend for the spreading of the contents of the second series to organize in very large centers simultaneous public readings accessible to all. And one day we'll probably get back to, we'll probably do the second series stream as well. Last page, baby, let's go. And as regards the real, indubitably, comprehensible, genuine, objective truths, which will be brought to light by me in the third series, I intend to make them accessible exclusively only to those from among the hearers of the second series of my writings who will be selected from specially prepared people according to my considered instructions. It has been done. This house is now pure. Yeah, plus 100 esoteric knowledge, baby. We did it, guys. We did it. Lucerne, after reading so much of Gurdjieff, how would you compare Gurdjieff's systems to other systems? Or to Taoism or Vajrayana? That's a bit of a difficult one to say, but because this is the thing, Taoism or Vajrayana Buddhism aren't systems, they're paradigms. Within Taoist systems, there's like microcosmic orbit, there's, the three centers, there's the sinew changing. Within Vajrayana Buddhism, there's Mahamudra, there's Jogsen. So just a little terminology there, but fundamentally, Gurdjieff, fantastic. Oh my God, I'm super impressed. Super impressed. I can see the little trail. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. See the little trails of all the different things that Gurdjieff has done to like all the fragments of lost knowledge that Gurdjieff has pulled together. And not just that, but made a coherent system. And like, oh man, there's some massive nuggets in here. Massive nuggets. I see Gurdjieff as a true Gnostic in the sense of the word, not about demiurgs and dualism, but that the work is achieved not through changing your beliefs, but literal gaining of knowledge. And not just knowledge as in data that goes into your intellectual cylinder, but knowledge that transforms the being itself. Only through gaining or being understanding, as he would call it, is salvation assured, soteriologically and eschatologically. The Gurdjieff system is tied to the attaining of knowledge to change being. And he shows this, thank you, True River King, for the $5, and he shows this like beautifully through macrocosmic laws and how they interact with the microcosm, and then how the microcosm interacts with the macrocosm. It's just like he's got this crazy, like his cosmology has a hermetic flavor to it. I said before, it's like I used to think he was his own thing, and then I'm kind of like, it's a little bit hermetic flavor, and then I'm like, there's Gnosticism there, boy. There's Gnosticism there. It's good. It's so good. It's so good. Fantastic. Very impressive. Tyler, thank you for the $20. Schizo says, technically, regardless of depth and dimensionality, it follows that it would be a form of inward depth due to, sure? Yeah, Bob Ellis, we need to buy some Calvados to celebrate. I think that should be a fourth way tradition, is whenever you succeed anything in the fourth way, you buy Calvados, and that's how you celebrate, baby. Yeah, data, information, knowledge, wisdom. I've seen that paradigm out tuition that people use, but the way, and it's hard because people hear the word knowledge and they're like, oh yeah, and what they're thinking of is data. To Gurdjieff, what he's talking about is that thing, and really contemplate what this means. If an impression enters just your intellectual cylinder, that's just data. But if an impression strikes the entire being and you have a reaction to it, like an aha moment, like something strikes you and it's like in an aha moment, you're like, oh, and it's like your physical body reacts, there's an emotionality to it, and your intellectual cylinder connects, two concepts, pee-pee's touch. Intellectually, pee-pee's touch. It like, you get a eureka, oh, that, but it's not just that. It's if you're self-remembering at that same time that there's this force, there's something that's observing you as that pee-pee touch happens. There's extra knowledge. It's not just the impression coming in, but there's the knowledge of how that impression is processed within you. It's like double-sided knowledge. That is gnosis. That is wisdom. That is understanding, according to Gurdjieff. And that, which according to Gurdjieff creates friction within the body, and that friction pulls apart the Skoken from the abstruse donus and the helk donus, which are then the flesh that becomes the flesh of the astral and causal bodies. And mwah, mwah. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh my god. Oh, loved the Atlantean chapters, loved the chapter on art. Oh, it's so good. It's actually good. I'm so glad I did this as well, just to like increase like awareness of Gurdjieff, or enthusiasm for the fourth way in the world, because I think it needs that. I think it needs that. But bruh, and thank you all for coming along on this journey. And thank you for the Ghoul. Thank you for the $5. Achievement unlocked. Gurgy Burgy would be proud. Yes, he would. Yes, he would. Oh, baby. Yeah. So much fun along the way. God damn. One day, I've recorded every single one of these, so one day I'll like go through them all and I'll relive the memories, like making making shorts. Truva King says 3 cheers for Richard. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Oof. Our tuition. I knew you would know what I meant. Yeah. We plowed, guys. We plowed. Lucerne asks, what are we reading next? We're going to read The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. So there are some texts which are, you know, these occult texts which everyone talks about but rarely people read, and I think they're important. Like, if Western occultism was an actual literal school, what would the curriculum be? Beelzebub's Tales. I think The Secret Doctrine should be there by Blavatsky. Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. Which is what we're going to be doing. Secret Teachings by Manly PP is what we're going to be doing next. But I think, you know, 3 books of occult philosophy, Dwellings of the Philosophers by Fulcanelli. What's the Suggestive Inquiry into the Hermetic Mystery is another one which we'll probably read in the future. You know, some good books here and there. I kind of want to read Steiner's, not Knowledge of Higher Worlds online, but I want to read the Intuitional Thinking as a Spiritual Path. I think it's Philosophy of Freedom is the actual name of the text, but it like got changed to Intuitional Thinking as a in modern translations it's Intuitional Thinking as a Spiritual Path. But that's like Steiner's dissertation on free will, but he goes into like very Gnostic-y things in it as well. Yeah, but I like Manly P. Hall is this old kind of scholar, occult scholar, and I think it's good to go through his old work because there's always nuggets in there. But yeah, got to get to some Blavatsky on, because look, Theosophists did a lot of bad stuff and cringe, but they also did some good stuff, and I think it's best to always go back to the sources. You know, I'm a bit of a soft perennialist like that. So yeah, we're gonna get our Blavatsky on eventually, but yeah, and I would love to read the 2nd series and 3rd series, read some Meetings of Remarkable Men online. That would be great. That'd be great in the future as well. But yeah, baby, that was hard. That was hard. So, and yeah, I'll probably put up a video advertising what's happening next week. I got to get to filming it first. I should have done it preemptively. Opportunity lost. Anyway, thank y'all for coming along. It's over. It's Jover. We did it, guys. We did it. On this day, this time, was it 22nd, 23rd, 22nd, 21st for some people of June 2025. We all finished Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson. We did it, y'all. We did it. It's Gurjover, but really it's just Gurjun. That doesn't really sound right. Begun? Gurjun? Begurjeff. Nah, it doesn't really work. Anyway, I'll see y'all next week. Ciao.